Have you ever wondered what lurks behind the veil of your favorite horror films? What if I told you the scariest part isn't what's on screen, but the chilling truths they're based on? Tonight, we're uncovering the dark origins of iconic horror films. Stay with me, if you dare. Let's start with a cult classic, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This grotesque tale of a family of cannibals and their chainsaw-wielding member was inspired by the real-life crimes of Ed Gein. Known as the Butcher of Plainfield, Gein's horrific deeds shook America in the 1950s. He exhumed graves, crafted grotesque keepsakes from human skin, and even turned bones into furniture. Now imagine, sitting in your living room surrounded by lampshades made of skin. Is it still just a movie to you? But Ed Gein's influence didn't stop there. His horrifying acts also inspired characters like Norman Bates in Psycho and Buffalo Bill in The Silence of the Lambs. Each of these films takes a different aspect of Gein's twisted reality, amplifying it for the screen. How does it feel to know that behind these fictional villains lies a man who once walked among us? But Ed Gein isn't the only real-world nightmare brought to the silver screen. The Exorcist, often dubbed the scariest movie of all time, was inspired by the 1949 exorcism of a young boy known as Roland Doe. Reports of furniture sliding across the room, eerie guttural voices, and the boy's body contorting in impossible ways were enough to convince even the skeptics. The diary of the priests who performed the exorcism revealed details so unsettling that it was kept under lock and key for decades. Imagine the terror of being in that room, hearing the unearthly growls, feeling the room temperature drop suddenly, and knowing that what you're facing might not be of this world. And yet, this wasn't an isolated incident. Cases of possession and exorcism continue to surface, each one as disturbing as the last. Do you believe in the supernatural, or are these just stories told to scare us into submission? And then there's The Hills Have Eyes, a gruesome tale of survival against a family of mutated cannibals. But the inspiration is far from fiction. The legend of Sawney Bean, a 16th century Scottish clan leader, tells of a family that reportedly killed and devoured over 1,000 victims. Authorities discovered their cave dwelling littered with human remains. For over 2 decades, travelers disappeared without a trace, until one fateful night when a victim escaped and led authorities to the horrific truth. Picture yourself as a lone traveler, the sun setting behind the hills, and suddenly you realize you're not alone. The stories of Sawney Bean have been debated for centuries, but the fear they evoke remains timeless. Could there be other families like his, hidden in the shadows, preying on the unsuspecting? And then we have A Nightmare on Elm Street, a film that brought the terror of dreams to life. But did you know it was inspired by real events? Director Wes Craven revealed that the idea came from a series of mysterious deaths reported in the 1980s. Young men from Southeast Asia died in their sleep after experiencing vivid nightmares. Autopsies couldn't determine a cause, and the phenomenon became known as sudden unexpected nocturnal death syndrome. Imagine being too afraid to fall asleep, knowing that your dreams might be the last thing you ever experience. Craven tapped into this primal fear, creating a villain who turned sleep into a deadly trap. What's more terrifying, the idea of Freddy Krueger or the fact that sleep itself can kill? Horror films often draw from humanity's darkest truths, turning real fears into cinematic nightmares. From the cursed Annabelle doll to the haunted house of Amityville Horror, these stories remind us that the line between fiction and reality is thinner than we'd like to believe. But what draws us to these tales? Is it the thrill of being scared from the safety of our couches? Or is it something deeper? Perhaps these stories tap into a primal part of us, a part that knows the world is far scarier than we let ourselves admit. So the next time you watch a horror movie, remember this. Sometimes the scariest stories don't come from a writer's imagination, but from the dark, twisted truths of our world. The question is, which of these stories will haunt you tonight? If this left you shivering, you won't want to miss the story behind A Nightmare on Elm Street, a tale inspired by deaths so mysterious they defy explanation. Click here to uncover the truth, if you're brave enough.